Healed family, hello. So glad that you all are here. I'm excited, you all, about this Breaking the Legacy of Silence series. This is episode 3, and the title of this episode is Healing the Inner Child, Grown Woman Edition. Listen, before we get into it, I want to just remind you that this channel was created with you in mind. I am so passionate about our stories. I'm talking about every part of your story matters: the good, the bad, the ugly, and the indifferent. And so this channel was created just to cultivate a safe space where we can briefly dive into topics that jumpstart you on your journey of healing and thriving, not only for yourself but for your family, so that we can ultimately rewrite the narrative for ourselves and our families, that we can live and we can live well. I'm excited about today's topic because we talk a lot about healing the inner child. It's a heavy topic, actually. But the question becomes, what does that actually look like, especially for women who are still carrying the wounds that were never validated? That's a powerful question, because if you think about it, if you just sit in that question, it really makes you think about when we're injured emotionally, spiritually, whatever it may have been. The fact of the matter is this: we want somebody to be held accountable for the pain that they've caused. Isn't that true? It's absolutely true. But the reality is this: we don't always get that, right? And so we have to live with it. We carry it. And a lot of times we search for validation in and through other things and other people. But let's jump into it just a bit. What is the inner child, you may ask? So your inner child is the version of you who experience unmet needs. There were needs that you had as a child that were not met, simply stated. That could have been, you could have experienced rejection, shame, fear, and you did not have the language back then, nor the power or understanding to even begin to process it. So you see how when things happen in childhood, it's such a vulnerable time of our lives, right? Because we lack resources, because we're just children. We lack competence. We don't understand the pain that we're in at that time. We just know it hurts. We lack language, right? We don't know how to articulate and put into words what happened, why it hurt, and what we can begin to do about it. So it is something that we grow into as grown women, right? And that little girl still lives on the inside of us. That is the inner child. So for me, last episode, we talked about the impact, the wound, if you will, of parental absence. And so that was something that was really prominent for me in childhood. And now here's the thing, I want to just really be transparent about this. I didn't fully see the impact of my parents' absence. I really didn't. And I believe that is because I had a great grandmother who was present, who provided for me, who was there, etc. And so I received a lot of love. Now, the reality was there still was a void, because my parents, but watch this, y'all, not even just my parents, I really held on to the fact that my mother was absent. Now, did I care about my father? Absolutely. But for him, I did not have a reference. It was one of those things where you can't miss something you never had. And so my dad never lived with me. He had never raised me. I had never gotten even a glimpse, right, or a brief experience of what it looked like to be fathered by him. So the impact was more so with my mom, right? She birthed me. This is the one who was supposed to nurture and love me. And so it took a long time, and it really took for me to get into adulthood and started exploring and processing some of the things that I have been feeling and I have been going through in my life, that I was able to pinpoint, oh, okay, that's how the impact showed up. And so it could have been me trying to prove that I was worthy. I remember this was very evident with my older brother. He always had his friend group, and because I was a tomboy, you all, I always wanted to go with him. And if I could not go, oh, I was butthurt. Like, I'm talking about on a deep level. Why? Because it felt like rejection. Now, a lot of children get upset and cry when they can't go and do something or go with their older siblings, but I'm talking about, I was butthurt and I did not understand, why I couldn't go. Why couldn't I be granted the same privileges? Now, this carried on even when my mother, she was clean and sober back into our lives. And I knew that my older brother was her favorite. So again, that feels like rejection that turns into this type of survival techniques that I had adopted, that I'm just doing me, I'm gonna be independent, etc. So that's just a brief synopsis, if you will, of how those types of things showed up in my life when we're talking about addressing, confronting, healing the inner child. So inner child work is deep, it's heavy. I'm not going to sit on here on the video and give you these brief tips and tools that you can start implementing right away and then things are just going to change right away. Not so. Sometimes it takes years of clinical work. What do I mean? Being able to go to therapy and get assistance with processing some of the traumatic events that you've endured, especially in childhood, better known as adverse childhood experiences, and kind of peel back those layers of what those things meant to you, what those memories shaped for you, and how they continue to show up as a grown woman, right? So one of the things that you can do in therapy, if you're already in therapy, thinking about going to therapy, even in your prayer time, whichever avenue that you adopt, you want to get in the process of identifying unmet needs. So remember, we talked about that inner child within us experience in childhood, that he or she, her needs weren't met. Right? So now as an adult, looking back in hindsight and saying, what were some of the things I needed? What were some of the things I remember that I needed from my mother and she just could not give it to me, would not give it to me? What are some of the things that I needed from my father, but because he wasn't there, I did not get it, and I feel like I suffered? Like, really reflecting and going back and looking back as an adult, looking now as an adult, even back into childhood, what did I need? Identify those unmet needs. For me, again, I told you, I started realizing some of these things as an adult. Several years ago, I realized, I started asking myself the question, what did you need from your father? If he would have been there, what would you have need? I was writing down, journaling, all these different things. I needed to hear his voice, right? The male voice can be so powerful, influential. I had the strong woman voice. Oh, my great grandmother, she was a powerhouse. Oh my goodness, full of wisdom, her voice carried. She very authoritative, but also very gentle and loving. I had that. I had the example of the strong Black woman. I had that, but what I did not have was a true male voice echoing affirmation in my life. Echoing wisdom in my life that I can take into my adult relationships with men, with friends, whatever it is. I needed that. That was an unmet need, right? So go through, think about it. What did you need, right? And also deal with yourself with grace and compassion as you're doing this. You want to regulate yourself from a place of compassion, which means don't be so hard on yourself, right? And the reason why I say that is so important with the stigma around mental health and so forth. We can feel ashamed of needing and wanting help. We can feel less than for even saying we needed something from somebody. Why? Because as we've been talking about in the last 2 videos, we adopt these survival techniques that tries to lie to us and tell us we don't need people. We don't need love. We don't need support and assistance. Yes, we do. So when you're identifying unmet needs, when you're digging deep and accessing that pain, be vulnerable and gentle and full of grace with yourself and say, it was okay that you needed that. Affirm yourself, even with from looking back on childhood. You were a child. You needed that, and it's okay that you still feel the impact of those unmet needs. It's really, really important that you regulate from a place of compassion. I want to say this about triggers as we wrap up. We talk a lot about triggers. They can be a really good thing, because what they do is identify what's still present. You cannot be triggered by something or somebody if the wound is not still present. You wouldn't be triggered. It's a reminder. It's a smack in the face, I say sometimes. It's a gentle nudge, depending on how hard or how softly it lands with you in the moment. It's a reminder that a wound is still present and it needs to be addressed. It needs to be confronted with compassion, right? And it needs to be healed. Here's the thing, and I want to add this faith piece. God doesn't just heal what we present to him. He also heals what we've buried. Come on, y'all. That's deep. You know why? Because suppression is real. We can feel it, but we won't talk about it. God has such an open door with us, where he's given us an open door policy, an invitation, if you will, to come, to literally cast, to throw off from you, to cast your cares on him. Take them off of you. Throw them on him. Why? Because he cares for you. So he doesn't want to just heal what we articulate in prayer. He wants to heal the things that we have buried. He wants access to them. He wants you to name them. He wants you to identify them. He wants you to request help and assistance. He wants you to remind him that his grace is sufficient. So healing the inner child is an invitation to let God love you, oh God, at the level of your deepest hurt. He wants to do that for you. Okay, so we are not too grown. So we call this the grown woman edition. We are not too grown to continue healing. We are not too grown to still be healing from things that happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We're not too grown. And let me say this. Your healing, our healing that needs to take place does not diminish our strength. You're strong. You're demonstrating that you're strong by saying that this still hurts me. You're demonstrating strength by identifying the things that hurt you. That's strength. It affirms you. It affirms your strength, actually. So we don't have to, it's time for us to stop performing wholeness. You can't fake wholeness. Listen, take it from me. You cannot, as I used to say, don't fake the funk. If something's still hurt, you call it out, you name it. You cannot fake wholeness. You absolutely cannot. And we may fool others, but we absolutely cannot fool ourselves, and we definitely cannot fool God. And so, one of the things I want you to think about as we close this video today is, what is something that your inner child still needs to hear? and just say it out loud. Find you a private space. Maybe you want to journal it, whatever it is. What does your inner child still need to hear? Y'all, I love y'all. Thanks for tuning in. This episode is powerful. This is just only a brief synopsis of how we can address the inner child within ourselves and begin to cultivate a space for healing. Healed family. Let's live, let's grow, and let's heal together. Until next time.